Well, that's the end of the game. Wahoo, faithful viewers, listeners, thank you for joining us. I am your host, Big Law, and this is the Seven Cities Shop Talk Sports post game rapid reaction show to the University of Virginia Cavaliers versus their Notre Dame Fighting Irish. So let's just kind of go ahead and kind of feel our way into this. I mean, the game was over a long time ago. I will have some of our co-hosts possibly jump in here as well to give some of our rapid reactions and opinions. So the game is over. UVA loses 14 to Notre Dame's 35, and you know what can you say? What can you say? Uh, Notre Dame had a big lead, 28-point lead at halftime. One thing you can say is UVA beat Notre Dame in the second half. Um, those are some of the small wins you look for in a game when you are clearly outmatched and you have pretty much dug a hole for yourself to dig out of, especially when you have a team of that caliber. And just to face it, they just have super athletes, superior athletes. They have pros all over all on the roster. There's probably 50% of, maybe not quite 50, maybe 40% of those kids will have an opportunity. You know what? Maybe 50 will have an opportunity to play on Sundays. And maybe I'm talking about their top 30, 40 kids on the roster. Will have an opportunity, whether it's a tryout or being a high draft pick. But before we even finish that out, I said I was gonna, hold judgment on, how I felt about the game and how I felt about everything until I, until the end of the game, because it wasn't based on a win and it wasn't based on a loss. It was based off of how they played. What up, Antonio Appleby, ex Wahoo player right there. Still a Wahoo in his heart, just very passionate about the product. What's going on, App? Thank you for tuning in, brother. But yeah, for me, I feel like the team didn't give up. I also like the fact that um, Coach Elliott put in Tony Muskett, and I know some folks have been wanting Muskett a long time. They've been calling for him, but I also understand, trying to stick with Calandra, trying to stick with a young guy. He's still developing, and I mean, this is a 500 team right now with 2 games left, and I'm not even sure what the score is on the SMU BC game. They were in a dogfight the last time I had checked. So, and remember, we gave BC everything, and wound up beating them with their first string quarterback, Castellanos, who eventually has left the team. But, I feel like, can we get one of the two? But before we get too ahead of ourselves, shout out to our folks in the chat, Antonio, Peggy. She says clearly Musket is a better QB right now. AC, yeah, you know what? That is a great analysis, and I have to agree with that. Tony Musket is coming in fresh, and it showed. Fresh legs, strong legs. Okay, thank you for that update, Antonio. App that's 38-28 SMU won. Them boys can put up some points, can't they? But yeah, so Musket looks stronger, looks fresher. It looked like he actually was outrunning some of the guys. No one ever said that Musket couldn't run. His straight line speed actually he can actually get going once he gets his frame moving. For me, I'm in a position now where I don't care who's at quarterback, I don't care who's at running back, wide receiver, offensive line, and anybody on the defense. I want one more game. Can we get one more game? Right? Can we get one more game? What do we got? We got SMU coming to the stadium. Let me see. I think that time is a noon kickoff, and I believe it's military appreciation as well, which is really cool. This is when they do the cool flyover, and the band does the really cool military, formations and all kinds of different things on the field. Um, I'm looking forward to seeing what this team does. With this SMU squad at home. But it's the last game of the last home game, senior day, noon kickoff. Um, that's right. Yep, noon kickoff, and uh, you know, some of you viewers and listeners out there, especially those in the chat, give me an idea. Tell me how you feel about this game. How are you feeling after? I'm not gonna call it really quite a letdown, but the reality kind of sits in. When you play a team like this or a team like Clemson, and it's not just your mistakes beating you; they are actually beating you on the field, man for man, player for player. They're just better. And I know it's easy for some players to say, "Oh, we need to get better recruits. We need to do this. We need to do that." Sometimes you're just never gonna not measure up just because you know, we play, or our philosophy may be a little different. I get it. Notre Dame is a high-end institution as well, as far as academics goes. But they also are, have had the pageantry and the lineage of having a football legacy, um, almost rival to nobody. You got Michigan out there, who can run with them some. Lately Alabama. There's not many schools out there that can run with the Notre Dame when you're talking about win for win, championships for championships, and just support pageantry. All those things. Notre Dame is really one of the pioneers. Also with their own money, also being one of the first colleges to have their own sports network. Well, they might be the first making the large money, so to speak. But Notre Dame came through and did what Notre Dame does, to a team similar to ours. But I think our guys played hard. Um, I'm not going to look at the coaches and say, hey, the coaches didn't make all the greatest decisions, or they made a lot of mistakes here and there. I think we just, the guys on the field, coaches aren't throwing those interceptions. Coaches aren't fumbling the ball. I think for the most part, and this will not look like that when you just look at the score. This defense played a really good game. I mean, they made mistakes, some, but for the most part, the offense put the defense in a lot of bad spots. Was it 5 or 6 turnovers? I know it was 5. Yes, absolutely. Look at Peggy Moore on the spot. Yeah, the defense played tough and played really well to me. 35 points doesn't give you doesn't tell the whole tale of how the defense played. And I felt like I said, the offense put this team in a really bad position. And when we, back off of it and look at the season, whether they finish with 6 wins or not, we'll be able to say, wow, this team actually, played, you know, to their strengths and try to play the game, try to play the game about as good as they could play it against certain teams. But they have taken a step. I'm not saying they always have taken the right step this year, but they are taking steps to being a better team for positivity, and being a competitive team. 5-5 with 2 games left, that's an improvement. 2 games that they definitely should have lost, they lost, but uh, they still play those 2 blowout games that they lost. They still played tough. Really, a game that I felt they was really 1 and a half games I felt like they should have won that they did not win. That would be or they should not have lost the way that we thought they would win, and that would be the North Carolina game. I felt like they should have come out and played. If they played anything like they have played these last games where they have been close, won, or even fought to the end regardless of the score, I think that they win the North Carolina game, Maryland game as well. Um, but I digress on that part. This game was pretty much I'm not gonna call it a benchmark game because you really kind of know from the start kind of where you are. Benchmark games are games where you don't really necessarily know where you are and you're measuring. There was really no measuring going on here. This was you got animals, bigger, stronger, faster athletes on the other end. We have some really good, some nice pieces, some talented folks as well. It's just you know, their athletes sometimes, are just a little more higher caliber. You go up there and you look at rivals.com and you pull up Notre Dame's recruiting roster for the past 3 years. If you want to put them to put up against ours, you'll see just a huge difference. And you can put Notre Dame up against any college program, uh, as far as like recruiting, as far as the 3 star, excuse me, 4 stars, 5 stars, and then, having to develop them. But 14 to 35. Remember, it was 35 to nothing at one time, I believe. And the guys still kept playing and still kept, the spirit. And like I said, Tony Musket did a good job, man. Did a great job. Now, let me ask you this, and I really hate to do it this way, but do we have a quarterback controversy on our hands? Hmm. Excuse me. Do we have a quarterback controversy on our hands? That's the question, guys. Viewers and listeners out there, who do you start next game or for even the last 2 games? If you make a change, do you make it for the rest of the year? I feel like if you have to make a quarterback change now, you actually have to keep that quarterback in for the next 2 games. Um, I, you know, Peggy saying musket all the way. I have to say I gotta agree with you on that. I feel like Anthony Calandria. Yeah, and as tough as he is, he's beat up, and you can tell that he's kind of beat up. He's and maybe and he's rattled right now. His confidence is a little rattled. He's I don't see him driving the ball as well as he was in the first part of the year downfield. I think he's doing his feet are a little happy, and he's quick to if his first reader and so on there, he tries to get out the pocket, and not the way I want him to get out the pocket. He's running out the back of the pocket. I want him to climb the pocket and pass that way or run. Um, App says, "Hey, I called the quarterback controversy earlier this season. It's tough when you start a young guy and he starts to struggle, and that's what's happening. He's starting to struggle. Um, he said, I think it will help him next year. That you know what, Peggy, you may be on point. Sometimes when you start to struggle, and granted, we're playing Notre Dame. He needed to see that. It's almost like the last time we played Notre Dame. Remember when uh, Jay Wolf started at Notre Dame for us a few years ago, and it was kind of like, damn, you know, being that we were hoping he would be our quarterback of the future. Sometimes they need to see that, and we were thinking that he was going to come in. My man Henry Davis says he starts AC. Had a bad game today. Yeah, he did. He did. I'm kind of like in my mind thinking, you know, maybe there's a battle. I'm leaning Musket, but maybe you give a quarterback battle towards the beginning of this week and kind of see who you want, or do you implement the dreaded 2 quarterback rotation, which pretty much everybody hates. The people that are in it hates it. The coaches typically hate it because it's hard to. The coordinators absolutely typically hate that because you get into a rhythm with a quarterback and you're trying to get a feel for how he's playing in the game, and you have a switch out and the rhythms are off, everything's off. And then, of course, the people who really only like this are the fans, because the fans feel like, it's almost like if one player is not doing good, you can always plug in the next player. Appleby says Coach Elliott he's kind of stuck. He has to go with his gut right now. You know, did you already say who you're going with? App, who would you go with right now? You know, who are you going with at this point? You know, but I think I'd have to go with. I'm leaning Musket, like I said, and I'm not totally confident in that answer because I've seen a lot of good things from AC, but they gotta get him, climbing the pocket, and our guards and our center holding, uh, holding the point of attack some, so he can have an opportunity to step up and get into his passing lanes because he's not going to see over 6'3", 6'4", 6'5". He needs his passing lanes, and our guys have to create more passing lanes. And I know he's going against some absolute gorillas up front, and he's trying to pass through you know a chicken wire fence trying to get a ball through it based off of how these guys are pass rushing him. But he needs to step up in the pocket because of his size. Antonio says, nope, it's coaches Elliott. Yeah, yeah. So what's your opinion on that, Ab? Are you going? Do you stick with Calandria, or do you go with Musket? But I just feel like it's definitely a dilemma at this point. And that'll be a question for Tuesday on the show because everyone kind of will have an opportunity to let this kind of sink in and get an idea how they feel about what they saw in the second half. And it actually looked like Musket, sure, he had a grasp of the offense. His legs look fresh. He looked bigger. He is bigger. He looked stronger. He is stronger. And getting the ball down the field, he did more of that as well. Uh, but then again, against SMU, could it be just a matchup? Could the matchup that oh, excuse me, could the matchup that you have with oops, hold on one second, guys. Could the matchup that you have with SMU match up better with Calandria? Because he has no opinion. Personally, wouldn't be in this position. That's why. Okay, all right. So, all right, lay it at his feet. Okay, but for me, let's see how how they work out in practice. That's what I will leave it on. How they are playing in practice this week. Typically, when you're playing a team this good, meaning a Notre Dame team, you typically you kind of chalk it up to this is just a superior team. There's not much anybody could do. You usually go back to your starter. Henry Davis says AC's mobility is a big asset when used properly. Very true. Notre Dame's defense one of the best in the country. That's right. That's what I was saying. Just my statement of saying that usually they go back because the team is so good. Notre Dame is in the top 10 of every major category in college football. So you typically go back to the starter, and that may be the case. I think today was definitely just an awful day for Calandria. He was rattled. He's going against like I said, the top 10 defense in the nation, and that may be that. Maybe you burn the tape for him. You burn the tape and just say, he did what he could do, and it wasn't enough. And this team just had more horses than us. And when that kind of happens, they have more horsepower. Ain't nothing you can do on the track when a car has more horsepower than you. You're just gonna lose. That race. But maybe SMU talking about horses. We play SMU coming up this Saturday. Will SMU, with their high flying offense, would that be a team that this UVA team will have an opportunity to stick closer to? I think that hopefully they will. I think they can. Eric, he says, work it out, split snaps with this first team in practice. game plan should not change. And if AC starts, the decision to pull is shorter based off of what he does. Okay, that's the strategy. That's kind of what I was speaking of. Typically, you go back to the starter because he was, the entire team, not just the quarterback, the entire team was so outmatched when you're playing against a team like this. So, I'll take it. I'll take what some of this advice that everyone's giving out here. Now, am I, you know, sure we're talking about the quarterback, but another thing is the defense. The defense played tough. We also had some injuries. I wonder how our linebackers doing. Jason, also Jackson. Will also, I know Jonas went down, but I think Jonas bounced back. Let me think. Who else do we have that went out? We had some players go down, and how severe the injuries we don't know. I know Xavier went down, but he actually came back in as well. So that's something of a concern. And some of these injuries. A lot of times when you play in these bigger, stronger, faster teams, you always have a rash of injuries, and not only that, you typically lose the next week after you play a team because they beat you up so bad. Peggy says Musket looks in control of the offense. AC looks jumpy. Yeah. AC does look jumpy. Yeah, AC does have we call it happy feet, or he's seeing ghosts. Is what we'll call it. And maybe this is something that he needed to help him settle. Give him a half to take it easy, and he might be okay coming out for next game. But this has been an experience. This has been very not eye opening, but almost matter of factually, as people would say. We felt like this would be a game that they would have a tough time winning, and it was. But also keep in mind they scored 4 touchdowns on 4 of our in the first half, 5 of our turnovers. We assisted, we gave them the keys to victory without even really us having to, without them having to do but so much when we gave them short fields and the huge momentum swings they got in their stadium, and already with a team with that kind of a talent structure they have. I can tell you what, the defensive coordinator, the guy's an animal. I know you can say that, based off of what he's using, but man, and also a UVA guy as well in his early years. So shout out to them. Shout out to the ex-Wahoos still doing well. And, this team still got one more game you can get. This team is still on the cusp of a bold berth. Let's not give up. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. This is an opportunity. This team hasn't been to a bowl game since Bronco took the team to the Orange Bowl, when they won the ACC South. And let's think about it. Let's get this. Excuse me, the Coastal Division. They won the Coastal Division. Let's let's still stick behind this team. Season, yeah, that's exactly right. App is exactly what I'm saying. Season's not over yet. You got 2 games, and the way this team plays, who knows? Because remember, in the first quarter, they played Notre Dame so tough. Not and the fact that we gave them pretty much 7 points on the doorstep right at the red zone, with Ethan Day with Tyree fumbling the ball, and he, shout out to Tyree, nice try, son. He wasn't ready. He was jumpy. You could tell the way that he played. He didn't catch any, meaningful passes, so to speak. They had his number, and maybe he just, this year hasn't been a good year for him, man. We were expecting a lot of things, but it just hasn't come to fruition for him. But maybe, just maybe, we'll see him have a breakout here in these last 3 games. We haven't had a breakout real game for him. I mean, he did play good last game, but we'll see what comes out. Henry Davis, if UVA can play turnover-free ball, I believe UVA has a chance. I absolutely agree. I'm with you on that. We had stopped them too. Yes, we did. From Appleby, he says, had a rough, yeah, had that roughing the passer. Yeah, we did stop them. Then had the roughing the passer, which Cam knows better than to do something like that. It took too many steps, and I know you want to impose your will when you're on defense. I'm a defensive guy. I'm all about imposing my will. I'm all about the extra push, the extra shove, hitting and driving, your opponent into the turf or into the grass. I'm a defensive guy for sure. I know about that. Making them feel everything that you are putting out as far as energy, effort, and I don't want to say the word like Mr. T, inflicting like pain. You know what I mean? But if it's a byproduct of me being aggressive, the pain, so be it. But that's what I understand. That's what imposing your will kind of means to me. It's the byproduct of your aggression. The imposing your will and then the pain that comes behind it. But let's just take a breath, take a breather, because we got a big game, last home game this Saturday at noon against SMU, who is still vying for the ACC championship. Now and I could not find. I was thinking that they could not win the ACC, or go to. I'd have to look it out. Being their first year in the ACC, there are some provisions that they can and cannot be a part of, being their first year in the conference. But let's go ahead and get this, man. Let's go ahead and support the team. If you're going to be out there Saturday, I'd love to see you guys, to say hi to you and maybe take some pics or whatever. But UVA loses to Notre Dame 14-35. Still came out in the second half, played strong, and actually won the second half, but not enough, playing a much superior team. But let's just see what this team has to offer us for these last two games. Season's not over by any stretch. You're absolutely right, App. But I can tell you, I got to thank all of you for hanging out, viewing, and sticking with us pre-game, halftime, post-game for this game. But I tell you, I'm gonna be here, man. Appreciate you too, guys. Appreciate you too, App. Thank y'all for tuning in. And I will be, like I said, I'll be at the stadium. I'll have a walk-in as usual, have a pregame, halftime, and postgame, and to get your opinions. Let's see how they do against SMU, high-flying team. I think we can beat SMU too. I think that they're a lot of talent. If our guys can get after them, because they have a really good quarterback who can throw the ball. They have a lot of good receivers, fast receivers who can make plays on the outside. But we got to get to the quarterback. We got to disrupt him, move him off of his perch. But that'll be a conversation for Tuesday. But we got to thank all of you for hanging out and joining us for this show today. But thank you. Good night. But as of now, this shop is closed. Thank you, guys. I'm looking forward to Tuesday. Take a breath. Breathe. Because we got 2 more games to get into a bowl. See you guys on Tuesday. Thank you. Bye-bye.